During the Iranian protests 2 years ago, Americans saw how the Iranian people used the social media, and it's no longer in dispute the effect of the internet on the Egyptian uprising. And, you know, they used Twitter, Facebook, texting, YouTube to gain a following in the country, and in fact the admiration of much of the world in the process. However, many American people were shocked to know years ago that the Iranians were using the social media, to monitor protests and to down opposition leaders. And even worse, we discovered that companies, as was mentioned by Congressman Smith, with the presence in the United States, were helping the Iranian regime exploit technology and turn innovation into violence. I'd like to know what the department is doing to work with American companies that are selling their technology and these products around the world to ensure that these products are not an obstacle to human rights at best or a tool of violence at worst. And
I met with a group of 7 Egyptians from Cairo and Alexandria just recently come to the United States, many of them young professionals. And I asked them to give me their opinions on what needs to be done. And I'm just going to share with you sort of their list from the front lines. And the first observation they make is they shared with me that we need strict implementation of international human rights laws in this country, and that there should be some discussion of this in the United States. A guarantee of basic freedoms by holding accountable those who violate international human rights laws. The second thing they see missing from the discussion is an end to all discriminatory acts that are based on ethnicity and sex and religion throughout all sectors of society, and most important, some kind of discipline for those who violate that prohibition. They ask for eradication of all ideologies in the education system, and because those install discrimination and hatred among students starting at the preschool level and all the way to the university level. The fourth thing they'd like, these are the young students that were in the streets, all right? They want awareness of the imminent danger of radical religious groups in Egypt, such as the Muslim Brotherhood, which to some extent, they say, is funded by Iran, and one of the things they report is that there is walking around money, and there's food that has been provided by the Iranians, and it's annoying to those that are leading the charge to have on the streets, a foreign influence, and they'd like that known.
In the summer of 2009, many of us in this country were very dismayed over the fact that when the demonstrations broke out in Iran, in the streets, that on day 1, our president said nothing. On day 2, our president said nothing. Finally, on day 3, he said something to the effect that we need a continued dialogue with the clerics. That was extraordinarily disappointing. And then when the people started marching in Egypt, it didn't take the president that long to undermine President Mubarak and said he's got to go. And so I'd like to know what the basis of the president, and at that time you were Deputy Secretary of State, and doing nothing in Iran a year and a half ago. Why didn't he do something?
Well, Congressman, I obviously have a different view on what took place, both in terms of the statements that we made in support of the people in the streets in Iran and the support that we have continued to give for that, as well as our continued focus on the problem of the deprivation of human rights in Iran, including...
No, I'm talking about the response, not the focus. And don't tell me that the people in the streets were supported by the U.S. government, because they were not.
We made clear our strong support for them, but at the same time...
But you didn't. That's not correct. They were not supported.
I think we gave the support that the President articulated and the Secretary articulated about our strong commitment to their rights to peacefully demonstrate, to assemble, the need for the government there to engage with them.
But everybody in the world understands that President Obama's position is to push Mubarak out of office. And I'm just really astonished that you think that that's an amazing statement. So why do we do anything more in Iran?
Again, I think our position has been to be clearly to support the rights of the people to demonstrate. We've made clear that we thought that the election was not conducted fairly, openly, that we spoke out against the oppression, we spoke out against the violence.
It was clearly not enough. I mean, I don't think anybody in this country who's interested in Iran turning around was satisfied with the statement of the President of the United States. So what are you going to do now in light of the President's involvement in Egypt? What happens if demonstrations break out in Tehran? What are you going to do now?
We will do as we have done and we've said about demonstrations, whether they're in Syria or in Iran.
I mean, you see, that's the problem. The answer that you are giving, I know it's well intended and it's obviously factual, but it's weak. And it's the message of weakness that gets sent abroad as to what the United States is doing. President Obama and the Secretary of State have been very clear about what's going on in Egypt. Granted, the demonstrations there have lasted longer than in Tehran. And either they said directly or inferentially that Mubarak has to leave. And apparently that's going on right now. But it was so weak in Iran. I mean, don't you think that the President's statements go a lot towards formulating public policy when people take to the streets, such as they did in Tehran?
Again, I think the President spoke clearly to this, but I also think there are other things that we did, and partially using tools that you gave us. We've identified members of the Iranian government who are human rights abusers and imposed sanctions on them. We've taken measures to work to appoint a special human rights rapporteur on Iran.
Well, they put three hikers on trial for treason.
And we have made very clear and worked very hard, including...
Well, nothing's working, so are you going to change something in Iran?
I think we have a very comprehensive strategy vis-a-vis Iran, which not only deals with the human rights abuses there, which are substantial, but also the Iranian nuclear program, which has led us, with the leadership of the Congress working together with us, to impose the most comprehensive sanctions on Iran that have ever been imposed, and have led us to help mobilize the international community. And I think the two have gone together because the fact of the democratic repression and the deprivation.
Well, I just want to, remaining time, just let you know how disappointed we were with the President and the very weak response to the people demonstrating for democracy in the streets of Tehran back in the summer of '09.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I very much agree with you.